Chapter 7 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. If we recognize that our feeling in respect to sacrifice is inverted, and, as in sickness, the very condition of our rightful joy is become the source of pain, we see that our thought has also been perverted. We have judged of good and evil falsely. And thus does light not arise upon us, a light in which we cannot but rejoice? Do not two mysteries disappear? The mystery that God reveals himself in Christ, taking suffering and death to show himself to us, and the mystery of the pain and sorrow of which our life is full? Seeing what God's joy is, we see why Christ alone can reveal him. The nature of joy that is in love cannot otherwise be shown than in taking sacrifice and bearing sorrow. To reveal God there must have been presented to our eyes a man of sorrows, who chose and willingly embraced our griefs. For we feel that to be sorrow which is the very basis of his life and blessedness. Nor could our human life otherwise be full of sorrow too. We are dealt with, most happy those who most dealt with so, according to the nature of our manhood, not according to our false feeling of it, according to the true good, not according to our perverted desires. Our good is secured in the felt loss, for our nature is larger than we feel. Our ends are most subverted when we most feel them set at naught, for our destiny is higher than we know. The best is given in us, though we could choose the worse, the basis of the largest and highest happiness, though we could choose the lower and less. We are sacrificed, unwilling, for others' good, unseen. But it is no mystery that we are so, because in willing sacrifice for others' good, known, seen, and felt, even as his own, lies God's own blessedness, the blessedness of all who truly can be blessed. The broken remnants of the perfect life of joy are these pains, these multiplied and dire distresses, these clouds which to us veil the heavens in despair. Nor are they remnants only, they are germs from which the perfect life may grow. They are the omens of victory and delight, the basis upon which is to be built up a great joy for which they cannot be too great. Of all that could not be spared from our life, our sacrifice is that which could be spared the least. And that there is a perversion of man's feelings and desires, a radical want in our nature, is a known fact, proved long ago, and resting in evidence which needs no fresh confirmation. The disease of humanity has written its proofs on every page of history, has engraved itself indelibly in the human heart. The fact is already known, and we are justified therefore in using it to guide us. For his full life and happiness, man must be changed. Surely then, this change, to which we must look forward, may be one that shall make sacrifice his joy. Nay, for his perfect holiness and bliss, it must be so. For unless sacrifice is joy, holiness beyond temptation, and happiness without a sorrow, cannot be. But if it thus proves itself to the reason that pain is sacrifice, and is good felt as evil through disease, it proves itself still more to the heart. Nothing can make pain so good as that it should be borne for others. So it becomes a privilege. And this is the inevitable demand of the human heart when it seeks for consolation. Even the natural feelings of men, unaided by that revelation of life which shows us this consecrated sorrow as a central fact, have often risen to confidence in the belief, and to happiness and strength based on it. The thought is beautifully expressed in the following passage by the Emperor Marcus Antonius, showing that even in darkness and insufficiency, it is yet native to the soul. Just as we must understand when it is said that Aesculapius prescribed to this man horse exercise or bathing in cold water, or going without shoes. So we must understand when it is said that the nature of the universe prescribed to this man disease or mutilation, or loss, or anything of the kind. For, in the first place, prescribed means something like this. He prescribed this for this man as a thing adapted to procure health. And in the second case, it means that which happens to, suits, every man is fixed in a manner for him suitably to his destiny. For this is what we mean when we say that things are suitable to us, as the workmen say of the squared stone in walls, or the pyramids, that they are suitable when they fit into one another in some kind of connection. For there is altogether one fitness, or harmony. And as the universe is made up of all bodies to be such a body as it is, so out of all existing causes, necessity, destiny, is made up to be such as it is. And even those who are completely ignorant understand what I mean, for they say, it, necessity, destiny, brought this to such a person. This then was brought, and this was prescribed to him. Let us then receive these things, as well as those which Aesculapius prescribes. Many, as a matter of course, even among his prescriptions, are disagreeable, but we accept them in hope of health. Let the perfecting and accomplishment of the things which the common nature judges to be good, be judged by thee to be of the same kind as thy health, and so accept everything that happens, even if it seem disagreeable, because it leads to this, to the health of the universe, and to the prosperity and felicity of Zeus, the universe. For he would not have brought on any man what he has brought, if it were not useful to the whole. Neither does the nature of anything, whatever it may be, cause anything which is not suitable to that which is directed by it. For two reasons, then, it is right to be content with that which happens to thee. The one because it is done for thee, and prescribed for thee, and in a matter having reference to thee, originally from the most ancient causes spun with thy destiny. And the other because even that which comes severely to any man is to the power which administers the universe a cause of felicity and perfection, nay, even its continuance. For the integrity of the whole is mutilated, if thou cuttest off anything whatever from the conjunction, and the continuity either of the parts or of the causes. And thou dost cut off, as far as it is in thy power, when thou art dissatisfied, and in a manner triest to put anything out of the way. Footnote: The Thoughts of the Emperor Marcus Antonius, translated by George Long, page 65. Footnote: The Thoughts of the Emperor Marcus Antonius, translated by George Long, page 65. End footnote. In this feeling that the true consolation in distress must be found in its use and subservience to others' good, breaks out in a more exquisite and Christian form in Milton's poem on his blindness. Having heaped up the description of its distress and privations, he turns, for his rejoicing in it, to this thought, and this only: they also serve who only stand and wait. And if they who stand and wait, do not those who suffer too? Is it conceivable that God should give to some, whom he blesses with health and vigour and large gifts of influence, the privilege of greatly serving him, and doing a wide work of use for others, and that this privilege, which none else can equal or supply, he withholds from others from whom he takes health and strength, and every gift but that of suffering? Does he give the one the blessedness of serving, and refuse it to the other? Behold, my ways are equal, saith the Lord. If our life were ordained to be good, truly, satisfyingly good, it could be made so only in one way. It must be a life of sacrifice, for all other goods fall short. We know they fall infinitely short of this. And it must be sacrifice for unseen ends, because the best ends must be unseen by us. To be the best, our life must be sacrifice, and for ends unseen. It must be, therefore, to us, just what our life is. Must we not believe, then, that our life is this, the best? In the fruitless seeming pains and failures, it fulfills the conditions of being the best life, of presenting the highest form of good, and of being turned to the best ends. It is this God calls upon us to believe. This is a demand He makes for faith, showing us to justify and conform it, a life like our own, of sorrow and humiliation, or if in this unlike our own, unlike only because the sorrow was greater and the humiliation more profound. A life of sorrow in which the meaning and end are no more concealed, but made manifest to all. Revealing so the secret of our life, He calls on us for faith. And so the pain of life is made good, all its pain, not indeed to our sensuous feeling, but to the deeper feeling which rules and subordinates the other. This faith has power to make pain good, to make us place above all price that which we most should shrink from. Only let the love be strong enough, and the pain cannot be too great, nor the loss too absolute. And therefore, feeling that the heart here becomes the judge, the reason having given its assent, appealing to the heart, to that moral feeling on which the existence of God Himself rests firm in man's belief, have we not answer distinct and clear, that pain must be sacrifice, a privilege, and not a loss? Does not the thought, once seen to be possible, affirm itself as necessary and refuse to be held in doubt? Does it not link itself with the belief in God, so that we are compelled to say that if God is, then pain is sacrifice, sacrifice for man? For if we think otherwise, then do we not choose to join evil with His name? Not to believe our pains serve others' good, and are the fact of man's redemption, is but to disbelieve in God. This is to doubt His goodness, and contract the very evidence on which we assert His being. Once recognized in its true meaning, the thought ceases to be a question of argument and balanced evidence. It sinks into the soul, and becomes part of the deep conviction on which all religion rests. Pain cannot be interpreted otherwise than thus, when once we see that it can be thus interpreted. The heart rises up from its chains and rejoices. God reveals Himself. He has manifest joy, and we see it and are glad. Amid our tears we smile, for when our woes are deepest, then our joys are highest. Then we are likest Him, are nearest to the dignity of manhood, partakers most in that on which all living joy is based, needing only that our life be perfected to make it joy. We seek to be delivered from pain and sorrow, and God designs to deliver us. Vainly we seek, but He accomplishes. Our end is not mistaken, but we mistake the means. We seek deliverance by taking away, He gives deliverance by adding. 'Tis the life of which our nerves are scant, more life and fuller than we want. And God our Father, who knows the disease and provides the remedy, leads us also to see our need of it. Surely it is not hard to turn and keep our thoughts, recognizing our own too narrow life and our too contradicted heart therewith, that makes us seek a good too small, to be too easily content, that gives us a content which cannot be undisturbed, desires which God cannot gratify, because that would be to curse instead of blessing, to curse instead of blessing him for whom He has ordained the highest blessedness. Surely it is not hard to be on our guard against ourselves, and to remember that our wanting and enfeebled nature misleads us, makes us grasp at remedies that are no remedies, at goods that are too small and pitiful for human good. Not hard to aspire after more, and to feel that our only joy must be in that which is already known as the highest and best. Surely we can learn to shape our prayer for health, not for alleviations, our power to enjoy the good, not for the false goods our sickness can enjoy, for the power to rise up from man's false thought to God's true. When, as a reward, the prospect of our future grows into infinite glory, the thought of human nature rises into elevation unconceived. God appears before us infinite afresh in tenderness. In the darkness of human sorrow, all the sad failure and agony of life, shining with the brightness of Christ's own sacrifice, are changed into the instruments and prophecies of joy. Surely it is not hard to think, not, I want self-good to make me happy, but I want life to make sacrifice my joy. And thus there is no mystery in pain. The world were an utter and hopeless mystery if pain were not. Where, then, would be the basis and the root of love, the prophecy of an enlarged and ennobled nature? Where the revelation of our life in Christ? But there are some difficulties that will probably suggest themselves in respect to this thought. Two of these especially demand notice. 1. It may be felt that there can be no satisfactory treatment of the question of pain without reference to sin. Is not sin the radical cause of all other evil, and without it, would not man have had an entire immunity from suffering? 2. If we receive the thought that sacrifice is itself a good, and that painful things are truly the best, will it not lead us to voluntary choice and preference of pain to pleasure? In a word, would it not re-establish the long disproved theory of asceticism? In reference to the first of these questions, very few words are required. So far from the connection of pain with sin being called in question by the view that has been given, it is emphatically asserted. The whole thought consists in tracing out how pain arises and must arise from sin. From sin comes that disease and wanting state of man whereby alone pain can be felt. Without sin, pain had not been, for there had not been that perversion of the feeling and that lack of life whereby sacrifice is felt as pain. Pain is from sin, but sacrifice is not. The conditions of good and happiness are not altered by it. These ever were to be found in sacrifice, and ever must be. Therefore it is where sin has entered, and death by sin, pain must be. And if it should be asked, how then did Christ become subject to pain, seeing that in him was no sin? The answer is found in the fact that Christ took our infirmity. The disease of our nature was laid upon him, that he might remove it. He shared our feeling, that he might reveal the Father to us, and deliver us from the evil that he shared. End of chapter 7 of The Mystery of Pain. Recording by Ethan D. Gilkey.